All right, hey, good morning, everyone. It's that time of the week again. We're going to do our weekly weather outlook, and as always, I have it on my Facebook page. I have it on the WMAB main page, so feel free to say hi, say where you're watching from, and throughout this, you can always comment questions as well. Typically with these, we do talk a lot about our local weather, or at least our regional weather. This week, I do want to focus on the tropics. There's so much going on in the tropics, and I do want to answer any questions you might have. Hi, Priscilla. Hi, Ron. Hey, Fred. And we are specifically going to focus more so on the... We're getting some questions about volume. Let me know if this is better. We're specifically going to talk about the Atlantic hurricane season. Of course, there's Hurricane Douglas turning out there for the Pacific, but we are going to talk about primarily the Atlantic hurricane season. All right. Hey, good morning, Matthew. Good morning, Danny. Hey, Andrew. Hi, Deb from Definiac Springs. Rhonda from Gulf County. Okay, looking like we're getting... Someone commented volume. If you guys can hear me, feel free to comment. Looks like we're getting a couple people on. Morning, Mary. Okay, volume's working fine. Okay, I'll check that in again in a couple minutes just to double check. Okay, so yeah, so we are only in the mid to end of July, and we are already well through a third of our names. So for the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season, so far we've only seen tropical or subtropical storms. So we've yet to see a hurricane, but man, we have swept through these names. We've seen already Arthur, Bertha, Cristobal, and Dolly, Edward, Faye, Gonzalo is out there, and we know Tropical Storm Hannah is out there. So this does beg the question. Some people have asked, what do we do if we get to the end of this list? What do we do if we get to Wilfred and hurricane season isn't over? And again, the peak of hurricane season is typically the early to mid of September. So what we do is we actually do have additional storm names just in case. Now, hopefully we don't have to use these, but this did happen in 2005. If you remember, a very active year. This year has been forecasted by several private forecasting companies, by NOAA, that this is going to be an above average season. So this is a potential, again, peak of hurricane season still beyond us, and we have already made it through over a third of the names. So what we do is we resort then to the Greek alphabet. So if, and hopefully we don't have to get to this point, but if we do run out of names, we would then start to see alpha, beta, gamma be used. Okay, so I do want to start this morning, and again, feel free to post questions throughout. I'm going to just go through all of this and then look at questions at the end. So hopefully I answer any questions you might have from just watching. But let's start with Tropical Storm Hannah this morning. Looking healthy. This is a relatively large system. This is in the northwestern portion of the Gulf. This is going to be a main issue for Texas. So heavy rain, we're talking if really south of Corpus Christi areas being kind of the targeted area for that heavy rainfall. But you could see 2 to 4 inches for the Texas coastline there. But as you head further south, and even as you trickle into Mexico, you're not only talking 2 to 4 inches, you're talking upwards 6 to 8 inches, maybe even isolated spots 10 to 12 inches of rain. So from Tropical Storm Hannah, the Florida Panhandle really not getting in on a whole lot of activity with this. This is a visible satellite. As of this morning, I wanted to show you this so you could really see the size of Hannah this morning. This is spending a lot of time leading up to landfall, which is supposed to be sometime tomorrow, maybe even as early as overnight tonight, over those warm Gulf waters. So we really don't want to see that happen. The longer the system spends over the warm Gulf waters, we know we want those waters to be at least 80 degrees to sustain tropical development. They are very warm. They're already in the mid to upper 80s. So with those Gulf water temperatures, it's feeding and feeding and feeding. It can actually continue to intensify before making landfall. And an intensifying tropical storm or hurricane, not good news. But overall, regardless, this system, regardless of development, really poses mainly a beach and boating impact for us. So mainly coastal spots seeing some off and on again shower activity from this. Again, this is mainly a Texas issue, but it is a system we're talking about. It's in the Gulf. So, of course, we also are advising you to really stay out of the water. On the boats, the past couple of days, we've started to see those conditions deteriorate. They're only going to continue to deteriorate heading into the rest of the day today. Seas are at 4 to 6 feet, building up to 8. We do have double red flags at Bay Gulf and Walton County beaches as well. So this is what we're talking about. Gulf water temperature is 85 degrees. You see 84, 85. So the water is plenty warm. Hannah this morning in the northwestern Gulf, this will continue to go through a period of some intensification right before landfall. This will bring mainly the biggest threats to the Corpus Christi down south areas. That will be heavy rainfall, which of course could spark flash flooding, which can be life-threatening as well. But that will primarily be a rain event. At this point, we don't expect Hannah to become a hurricane. So we do expect Hannah because, again, the longer the system, pretty large in size, can stay over those Gulf waters and feed off of that energy from those warm sea surface temperatures, the more intensification we can actually see out of the system. So by 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, we're looking at 65 mile per hour winds, certainly a strong and tropical storm. We're not talking about a hurricane though. We don't actually see this system becoming a hurricane unless we can actually see this system really, really slow as it does make that landfall. So after we see landfall, there's also very rapid weakening as typical. We get into land and that cuts off this source of energy, which was those warm Gulf waters. And you can see this as a remnant low by the end of the weekend. So this will be very interesting to see how this plays out for us in the Panhandle, what we're looking at. Yes, this is a system that's fairly large in the Gulf. We actually don't really see a whole lot from Hannah, which is good news. This area does not need any more tropical activity. However, there are certain things that we are seeing. Swelling from the system, first of all. So that's why we do have double red flags at the beach. This is just a live look I wanted to show you right now. Surf is already kicked up. You can see a lot of people already heading to the beach, and the water's closed today. So potentially closed again into tomorrow. You're just going to want to keep a close eye on the flag system. Potentially by Sunday afternoon. Again, we just showed you that track of Hannah, and this system expected to make landfall tomorrow. So once the system makes landfall and weakens, our swelling goes down. We could potentially be seeing better beach conditions by Sunday. So if you can hold off from really even your boating forecast is still really rough. If you can hold off from anything like that, the Gulf will likely be closed. All right, so that's the deal with Hannah, and then we're talking about another system and then another system beyond that. So there's a lot going on overall right now. As of now, the Panhandle seeing, again, little to no impact. So let's talk about Tropical Storm Gonzalo this morning. This system, a tad more impressive. Max winds right now sustained at 50 miles an hour. This is far out into the Atlantic. This still has days and days and days. The forecast will likely be tweaked with this system. This is a fairly small system. We talked about how Tropical Storm Hannah, actually a fairly big system. That actually does matter. So with a small system, this system is trying to trudge along, fighting off that dry air to the north of it, and it's actually been fairly successful in doing so. However, as it does interact with potentially some land down the road, topography could influence this system. Small storms are impacted a little bit more than big storms with high mountainous ranges and also wind shear. So Gonzalo, far out into the Atlantic, small storm, but almighty, trying to intensify to 65 miles per hour by tomorrow morning. So this is expected to, similar to Hannah, but the difference is Hannah actually making landfall potentially within the next 24 hours. Gonzalo has a lot of time over these waters. So this is in the main development region. This is where the majority of our major hurricanes in the Atlantic do form. So this is no surprise. What is a little bit different this year is how we've seen so many systems. We've knocked off so many names so early on. So this year's unique because if you remember back in 2005, I showed you how we got through all the names. That was the year of Katrina, and then we had to even go into the additional storm names, which would be the Greek alphabet names, alpha, beta, gamma, and so forth. So this year we're whipping through these names, but the systems haven't been all too intense. So we've actually yet to see a hurricane for the Atlantic season. Gonzalo would be our best bet, unless we see some really slowing with Hannah. Gonzalo would be our best bet for that first hurricane for the season. So what we're seeing right now is tropical storm strength. You can see it's a really strong tropical storm by 7 p.m. Saturday night at 70 miles per hour. So within a couple miles per hour shy of Category 1 hurricane status. And then there's a lot of uncertainty with this forecast. We have to see how it interacts with potentially some land, how it interacts with some of that dry air it's trying to fight off. I'll show you what I mean. So there's the Saharan dust. Again, small storms versus big storms handle dry air a little bit differently. This system's been trying to fight that off, and we'll have to see if this system can potentially even survive the weekend. So we could be done with Gonzalo by Monday. This forecast as of right now has that back down to a depression. We have to just watch the system closely. All right, the last system I want to talk about, we have Hannah in the Gulf. I'll pause it there so you can really see some of those cold cloud tops. You can see convection looking really, really healthy this morning, but it's still not a hurricane. It's just a fairly large tropical storm. It does take up a big portion of the Gulf of Mexico. And then we head far back out into the Atlantic. The main development region, this is the region we're talking about where we typically see a majority of our major hurricanes form. Again, typically it's usually picked up in that uptick of activity in August and September. It's the mid to end of July. We've been calling for an above average season. It's clearly verifying already. And then not only is there Hannah and Gonzalo out there, and we have this system. So this is a tropical wave just leaving the coast of Africa. That's where, again, majority of the major hurricanes originate. 0% chance of development over the next 48 hours. 30% still a low likelihood over the next 5 days. So I'll show you that one more time. As of right now, again, these two systems are named. Gonzalo, the potential, depending on how that interacts with some different ingredients through the weekend and beyond, potentially our first hurricane, and then this system that we just saw as that tropical wave. We're not talking about a tropical storm nor a hurricane yet, potentially, but this morning it's simply just a cluster of thunderstorms, and that's really how a lot of these horrible major hurricanes start off, is just a cluster of thunderstorms. All right, so I'm going to check on questions. Again, I really just wanted to focus on the tropics this morning, keep you guys updated. I see a lot of people saying hello. Yeah, pay attention to the flags this weekend. I believe there's already been people fined this morning. The Gulf is completely closed, of course, because of the swelling from Hannah. That's about the most we will see from this system. We'll also see off and on again showers near coastal spots on the west end. That's where we have our small craft advisory, of course. That's those areas closest to the action. So it's fitting. Okay. Don't see a ton of questions. A lot of people saying good morning. Okay. Not seeing a ton of questions today, but I appreciate tuning in. And if you think of any other questions, we'll of course keep you updated on the tropics throughout the entire season. Again, the peak of hurricane season is not even until early to mid-September. So this season, I'll show you the names one last time. We're cranking those names out. Yet to see a hurricane. We've already seen tropical and subtropical storms on tap, and we are watching Hannah, expected to make landfall this weekend, mainly for Texas is going to be the issue, and then portions of Mexico. And we are watching Gonzalo out there. We'll see how that survives or doesn't survive. And then we are watching that tropical wave that just left the coast of Africa. But other than that, Florida Panhandle just needs to really focus on beach and boating conditions this weekend. We potentially will see some isolated flooding on the very west end, talking Santa Rosa County on west, just because they've seen rounds and rounds of showers. But otherwise, stay safe this weekend, stay out of the Gulf, keep a close eye on those flag conditions, and you can always tune into midday. Otherwise, we will see you next Friday.